Hi everyone, Archana and I welcome you to this episode of Consciously Caring for Aging Parents. We bring our combined wisdom and life experiences to each of these conversations. May these conversations inspire, nurture, and support you in your own journey while you care for your aging parents. So let's dive in. So, hi Archana, and welcome to our session, that is session 4, which is happening after quite some time. And we are talking today about self care while we are caring for our aging parents. So, basically, it's how to balance personal life and the caregiving responsibilities. So, do you have anything to say before we start about this?
Hi, Smriti. I'm so glad to be back and that we are starting this again. And today it's such an important topic that we're talking about that is, self care. And often I feel this is one thing that is overlooked by the caregiver. Don't you think so?
I think so because I feel we get so caught up in especially because this is at a time when we have our own lives, like the career and everything, which is so busy. And maybe children are also at the time when they need attention with college and stuff like that. And our parents also need our care. So it is such a balancing act that one has to do. And I think somewhere that self care seeps under the rug and gets hidden, while, like you rightly said, it is one of the most important parts of caring for anyone, I think.
Very true, yeah. So, and balancing, as you said, for aging parents and while maintaining our own personal life as caregivers, it can be so challenging.
Mhm. So I know, Archana, that you have elderly father and I have elderly parents, and we both are using some amount of self care and in our own right. So let's share with our listeners what is it that works for us, and how and where do we squeeze it into this whole thing, and how does it make you feel, and how does it make your parents feel? Because there is a big help in this for both of us.
Smriti, we all know that in case of emergencies, they say that put on your oxygen mask first, isn't it?
Yes.
So, what does that mean here in this context? So, according to me, what it means is prioritizing our own, that is, as a caregiver, prioritizing our own well being so we can be good caregivers for our aging parents. So, uh, just as in an emergency, you're told to put on your own mask before assisting others. That is, you have to take care of yourself. What does taking care of ourselves mean? It means having enough rest, having proper nutritious food, having some amount of physical activity, and most importantly, the emotional support that as a caregiver one would need. So, this will ensure that the caregiver will have enough strength, energy, and that mental clarity to provide the best possible care for the aging parent. Because if we neglect ourselves, and it can lead to a burnout
Mhm.
and making it harder for the parent to be taken proper care of, and overall it can lead to a lot of distress.
I just want to elaborate on the emotional part of it that you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned. I think that's of crucial importance, and how we care for ourselves. And I think the society is becoming more and more open to therapy and coaching and these kind of things. I really feel having someone to talk about it is extremely helpful. And when we say talk about it, you can talk to anybody, your neighbor and all. But what is the difference? The difference is, if you end up talking about it as a complaint and a sad story that is on repeat, saying the same thing over and over again, it is not helping us. But when you go to a trained person, you will get that support where you can actually bring out what you want to say. At the same time, the clarity of, like you said, the clarity of seeing really what is here. It is really is, am I worried about what's happening here or some story that I'm carrying from the past? And that clarity, I think, helps a lot in bonding with the parent. No care can happen without self care, because only when you give yourself self care can you give compassion to this other that you're caring for. Nobody wants to feel poor thing, pity. Nobody wants to feel that. They want to feel power. And I think the way we can give our parents the power is by caring for ourselves and showing up in that moment when we care for them with power.
Well said, Smriti. Yeah, just like you can't pour from an empty glass, you know.
Yeah.
So we need to have that, uh, the ability to be balanced and have enough of that physical health and the emotional wellness to be undertaking this major responsibility of taking care of the elderly.
Archana, the one experience I can share from my own end, is that, see, every time for us, our parents are just those beings that are perfect all the time, that cannot age, that cannot fall ill, they've just been our support system since we were born. And now to see them in a role where they need care can be very difficult for us as well, which is another area where self care comes in, to be aware of this pain within us. It's a kind of a loss, the loss of a young parent. Now it's an old parent, youth has been lost, and we are also not the same. And there is so much of fear, anxiety, and guilt that underlies this caring that we are giving. And it's not that we should fight these emotions that are coming, it is about caring for them when they come up. And I see, I mean, the wisdom that people age. My parents can't be immortal. And this is how aging process works. Although we can say it so mentally, when you actually see it with your parent, it is kind of daunting, right? So self care comes into the picture there to care for our own guilt, fear, anxieties that are rising. And see, because I find a big difference when I take care of these and meet them versus when I don't. Because when I don't, there's more anger, there's more frustration. Why did you do this? Why can't you do this? Do you have to do this? Like, and you don't realize that, yeah, they're in an old body, but they have desires too, to want to go out, to want to do things. And can you imagine how that is when you don't have those physical abilities? They didn't have to ask any of us when they did it earlier, but today they need help and they're asking. And when they ask, we say, no, don't go there, don't do this. While that may be important for them, it's also important for us to acknowledge that there is the loss of physical ability, which is depressing for them. And that is also depressing for us to see our parent in this position,
Very true. Yeah.
right? So that self care of all this is so important.
During my mother's illness, especially the last 6 months of her life, which was really hard, she was struggling a lot. So it was very difficult for me, being her primary caregiver, to see her going through such a hard time. And well, I was the only one around her mostly because my siblings don't live here. And I kind of had not enough help in the house to manage everything. And caregiving is something that you need somebody when actually, you can't handle it emotionally or physically. You need somebody at that time to take up your responsibility and manage in your place. And, I had to do something to, take care of myself. So I needed that me time. And even if it was like just for a few minutes, I needed that. So I and it was difficult for me to go out and get myself enrolled into some kind of a class, or even to go out to the park for uh, breathing some fresh air. So what I did was I joined online yoga classes, and that really helped me tremendously, because I could uh, practice yoga. So I was doing some kind of a physical activity which helped me relieve that stress.
Mhm.
And also, it involved some bit of meditation. So I could practice that little bit of meditation and practice mindfulness, and some deep breathing and stretching really helped me. So ideally, this is what I did for my self-care, and I was able to cope up again with the caregiving responsibility.
Beautiful. And I totally know what you're talking about because yoga has been my companion for many, many years. And so is meditation. And I feel those are my tools too, along with which I use something called tapping. And if our listeners are curious, they can go on my YouTube channel, which is Smriti Gopal, and they can find tapping sessions there, which they can do for free. So I do that every day, and that really releases the emotional blocks in me to be open to not only the my parents but everybody in my life. And the other thing I feel very supported by is some talent that I have acquired over the years. For example, writing in calligraphy, Zentangle, these things bring me back. So anytime when I have a friend who is a Zentangle expert, and she in fact was saying that when her parents or somebody was in the hospital, she was sitting at the ICU and doing Zentangle. So
Mhm.
honestly, it is that effective where, and these are all such tiny pieces of paper with a pen. And so exploring Zentangle is another option for the listeners. But these are my tools. And along with yoga, meditation, tapping, all these other things come into the picture. And I feel movement, like you rightly said, it need not be only yoga, anything like a healing dance. That's something else that I do, which is just so flowing. It releases your body from that stress and that all these things that we spoke about, which makes it so heavy.
Very true. Yes, yes. Yeah, Zentangle is something that even I tried, and it's a kind of a meditation
Yeah.
in a way of its own. So it's something that really calms your mind.
Yes. So the thing I would like to bring up here, Archana, so that the listeners can also understand it, is that it is not easy to get on a self-care routine because there are so many things that come up. And the first thing is guilt. Somewhere we have been programmed that if we take care of ourselves, it is selfish. What do you say to that?
Absolutely, yes. If we take care of ourselves, it is considered as selfish. So that is when, the balancing comes into picture.
Mhm.
So how you're going to balance that self-care and also taking care of the aged
Mhm.
parent. So it's a difficult and challenging thing to do. But yes, with some proper strategies, I think a balance should be struck between the two.
Yes. So the thing about it is changing the narrative, right? Like as a coach, I do this with my clients and myself is changing the narrative. That is self-care. Self-care is selfish is what has been programmed. So which is why our body doesn't move towards the direction of health or taking care of ourselves because we think this is a responsibility that we need to fulfill. But when you see self care as soul care, like you said, if you don't put on your own mask, you can't help another. So if you can see that how it is actually the soul care that makes us available for our loved ones. And it's not about, it's actually a great act that we are doing to take that time to nourish ourselves so that we can be of help and support to the people who need us. Otherwise, we will be running on empty, like you said, right? Like, where is the replenishing happening? So, I think this is something that the listener has to also look into. Is there a narrative in the head like this? Because mostly I see that, where mostly in women, where we think that if we do anything for ourselves, then that's not okay. Family comes first, other things comes first. So that's something that I think it needs to be looked into, because there's no point in working on the frills of you should take care of your health, you should do self-care, you should. Well, why is it everybody knows they should and it's helpful for them, but why are they unable to do it? It is this wrong narrative which is keeping them hostage to that conditioning that I can't take care of myself. First comes the others, right?
Very true. So the girl comes into the family with the mindset that she has to take care of the aged in-laws, uh, and that's her responsibility. So, we are still with that same mindset that uh, taking care of the elderly is a priority. And in the process, we kind of forget to take care of our own selves. We get so involved and engrossed in that process. We even forget our own looks, how we are looking. Are we looking presentable? There's nothing wrong with actually, taking care of our own self, our own appearances, which is one of the important but yet primary thing which is neglected about taking care of our own selves.
Yes, and like you rightly use the word responsibility. Yes, it is a responsibility caring for aging parents or in laws or whatever, but there is a responsibility of caring for oneself as well, which needs to be prioritized only because you can't do the second without the first, right? So, another thing about self care, and especially with this, comes traveling, going on trips, going to restaurants, watching movies, somewhere that there is a thing that this person is suffering, so I can't do this. If I do it, they will feel bad. The point of the matter is, right now you can do this. When you are old, you don't know what you can and what you can't do. This moment, let's meet this moment. In this moment, I need to take time to do these things. And then I can also provide these opportunities to my care, the aging parents, the seniors, in the way that is possible for them. They may not want to go for a movie, but maybe you can watch a show or a Netflix together and have food and everything, make it a big thing. So, whatever it works, or they like talking to you, then you can go spend time with them for a whole day and talk and be present with them. But how can I be present if I haven't been present to my own needs and desires?
Yes.
See, that is something which I feel is where again we hold guilt. Oh, I can't be enjoying because of this. This is life, and life is a process. It's happening for them, it's happening for you. You are in this body at this age, they are in that body at that age. There's no comparison of the fun part. I'm sure when they are young, they have done whatever they are doing, and they also cared for their parents. You see, it was the same. So, at one moment, different planes of life exist, and soon we will be here and our kids will come up here, and that's where the whole thing. So there's a lot we need to remember when we grow older too about what we're talking, but that is the way of life. So I think this whole thing about the guilt trip, and I heard a quote which I feel is worth mentioning here. A
Mhm.
guilt trip is like any other road trip. You can't be forced to get into the car, so don't get into the car. Same thing with this guilt trip. The guilt is rising. I'm not getting into it because self care is important. It's soul care. And another thing I want to bring is the distinction. Why is it not selfish if it's self care? I'm caring for myself. Then why is it not selfish? Because selfish would mean that I care for myself, but I don't care about you. That is
Yeah.
selfish. But when I care for myself, therefore I care about you, and I come to you with a more energized being, then that's not selfish at all. There is no place for selfish here. I can see only care, lot of care. What do you think, Archana?
Absolutely, Smriti. You made it so clear for all our listeners to make that distinction between what is selfish and what is self care. Because, the terms are so similar sounding and there can be such a amount of confusion, but you put it in a very clear way. Yes, when we divide our time between taking care of our aging parents and also taking care of ourselves, then it is self care. But when you're not available for your parent, and you're just doing your things, that certainly amounts to be being selfish.
Yeah, so that distinction, once we get and we know where we are heading, I think we are safe and we'll see the value. As soon as you see the value of self care, you will have to remind yourself occasionally, and then you get into the path of, I need to do this for my own well being. So, for example, before you go on a call, just doing a tapping session with yourself or breathing, whatever. For me, I do tapping so I can do, but if you don't know what it is, then you can breathe. Even taking 3 full breaths before you pick up that call. Just follow your breath. Forget three, one. Take 1 full breath before you pick up the call. That can bring you into the moment. That can be. And I feel self care is to be present. Basically, that's what it is. And when you are present, your parents and or any senior person or anybody will think, wow, that was so meaningful. I've seen that in my own interactions with my parents when I don't pick up my phone and I'm there when I'm there. But I'm not there every day because I have to take care of other things and I have commitments, and they see it. They see it because when they get me fully. And the only way they can get me fully is when I have taken care of these other things which are important for my well-being. For example, the work I do is very important for me. I am passionate about it and it is my life's purpose. Therefore, I need to do it. And they see that. They see how that energizes me. So, similarly, listeners find their own passion, find their own breath. I think that pause before you go in, just before you enter the door, take a deep breath, and I'm here. Now I'm here. And not expecting our parents to be any particular way. Because when you care for yourself, you're okay. Okay, if they have a lousy day, they will be having a little frustration. But you bring your present self. So, this whole thing about self care brings the full focus on ourselves, not in a selfish way, but in a soulful way. I'm responsible. It's actually a big responsibility. It is my responsibility to show up in presence. So that, and then you don't crib, no, Archana. You don't complain, oh, look at this. I had to leave my meeting and come look at this. Now, my friend, I told her no because I had to come here. This kind of cribbing. Can you imagine if you're on the receiving end of this cribbing? How do you feel? Somebody comes and cares for you and keeps on cribbing. How much they had to sacrifice to be here to do for you. It feels really lousy, right?
Yes.
So I think bringing yourself, taking care of those parts, like if you're meeting with a friend, you're meeting, then say, I can't be here. So doctor appointments, we fix based on what we can do. If we can't do, then we can't. We'll take, unless it's an emergency and you have to be there. Then there's no questions asked in that, right?
Right. Hmm.
So I feel like these things are so important for our own well-being and the well-being of our senior citizens in this world,
Yeah. So, what I feel is like if you're trying to balance between caregiving and sometimes work, there's so much pressure at work. So you don't know how to take care of both, or it may not be just work, it could be anything else that demands your time. You need to set that clear schedule that will integrate your other things like maybe your work and along with caregiving tasks to avoid that overlap. So you can work out strategies with your employer, or if you want to go meet your friend, or you have some other things, try to work around it. But as you said, don't complain that I had to do this, but I had to give up and come and take care of you. I had to do this because it can be really very hurtful. So, and if possible, we need to try and delegate tasks when it's possible, both at work and if you have enough help for caregiving, try to do that. So that way it can reduce the load and avoid any kind of an overwhelming for the caregiver.
Yes, surely. I completely agree on the support part, the delegating that you're saying. That is really crucial. Now, here comes our question, right? So, one can be that, we think that we should be the one caring for our parents, not our helpers and all that. Or parents may not want to receive the help from a helper, they want the child to do it. So these are all things to look into and address and set boundaries. I think with parents, it's also like children and with other relationships, right? We have to set the boundary, what's okay for me, what's not okay for me. And I think that has helped a lot in my life, by setting the boundary. This is okay, I'm here for you, but today I can't do this, I can do this day. Or they come back saying that, can you do it this day much earlier, so I make my plan. So boundaries, that is something we really need to talk about, because boundaries is self care. Setting healthy boundaries is self care, so you know you're not reaching a stage of burnout. So I'm glad that word came out, because it's a very crucial part of self care. And there again, why am I not able to hold boundaries? What is that? And here comes in the relationship between the parent and the child, those years, the nostalgic years. So these are some things that we really need to look into. Why are we not able to set boundaries? Why are we not able to hold boundaries? Because just like our children, these adults will shake it, because they have been in the adult role, right, all these years. It's so difficult to suddenly change roles. So that is one thing which will be very, very helpful, is to set boundaries. And yes, it may be received well, may not be received well. Then how do I address that? These are the knacks of self-care. And support, see, we have to look into affordability, right, Archana? There's this help that comes, it doesn't come free, unfortunately.
Mhm.
So when we're talking about it, I want to include everyone, and I want to make the listener feel that we are not overlooking that part, that is the affordability. So keeping that in mind, what can I afford? And sometimes there comes, oh, I can save money. So is the money worth your peace of mind? This is the question we need to ask. If I can afford it, is it worth paying for my peace of mind? Is it worth paying for my relationship with my parent? Is it worth paying for my having my life's purpose going on? So where can I find something that's affordable to me? And some people may be blessed with good friends who will pitch in, relatives who will pitch in. But there's no harm in asking, because that asking itself is what stops us in the first place. Because I should be doing it. It's my parent. Well, yeah, maybe we should be, but can we seek help in some places? Like to stay in a hospital if they are admitted one night, so that you can sleep for a night, especially when you're caring by, like, you were alone. So that would have been so helpful. So I think support is a really, really must thing. You cannot do this alone. You need a support and a team, whatever the team looks for, like for you.
That's right. Mhm.
Hmm?
So I'd like to just add something here, Smriti. Uh, when I was taking care of my mother, and it used to be overwhelming. I cannot deny that. At times, it used to be overwhelming for me, and uh, And I felt many times that I was not being appreciated for whatever I was trying. So, and my mother had a condition called as COPD, that is to do with her respiratory, where the lungs actually kind of get affected. And so, what I did was when her diagnosis happened, uh, and it was something that I was unfamiliar of what COPD meant and what it can be like. So I immediately looked up on social media COPD support groups. And when I found support group on social media like Facebook, I immediately joined the group. And this group was so good for me to understand my mother's condition, because there were people who were discussing about the same condition. There were like elderly people who had the same condition, and there were also members of this group who were the caregivers. So I got to hear and see their posts from both angles, that is, from the ones who were having this condition and also from the caregivers perspective. So, you know, whenever I would feel overwhelmed, I would just drop a message there. Can somebody please appreciate the effort that a caregiver is trying to do for their parent who is having COPD? And then they would be so understanding and appreciative of what the caregiver does for the elderly parent with COPD, and that would kind of lift me up again, lift my spirits up, and to come back with more renewed energy to be recharged and again start taking care of my mother. It's not that I'm trying to say that caregiving can be draining all the time, but yes, it certainly does drain you out emotionally, and you need that uh, you know some positive appreciation from somebody that yes, you're doing your best, or you can do something in a particular way. So for that emotional encouragement, I think joining support groups will be a great idea.
That's a great suggestion. Awesome. Because I think somebody really can feel your pain from the place where it may not be same, but it's similar. And that is a big difference because you feel seen, heard, and understood in such platforms.
Yes.
That's awesome. I think, Archana, we have really touched upon the major. Is there anything else you feel like you want to say?
You also have to prioritize your own physical health and wellness, in terms of the caregiver following proper food and nutrition for themselves, having some kind of a physical activity, and get some quality sleep as well, because you feel kind of recharged and rejuvenated to continue with your responsibilities, and also to take care of one's own emotional health. So, this will go a long way in actually balancing caregiving and personal well being, because it takes a lot of effort. But with the right strategies and support, you can thrive in both.
Well said. So I just like to end the session saying that to the listeners that give yourself permission to care for yourself so that you can thrive in both the roles and your own life and bring your presence to the caregiving and therefore consciously care for your aging parents. So thank you for listening, and until next time, put self care as your priority. Thank you and bye bye.